Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Jones, and welcome to episode 80 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Man, Jamie and I had a really social weekend, way more social than we've been in a while, which is awesome. That is not a complaint in any way, shape, or form. Except, it's also, it's nice to complain. On Friday, we got free tickets offered to go see the Dave Matthews Band. Dave Matthews Band? Do you have to say the? At a tennis stadium here in Charleston. It's like Credit One Stadium, Capital One Stadium, something like that. Really small stadium, but very cool place to see bands. And like the seats, the views were incredible. I'll tell you what was also incredible: the fans. People, we were around, we were down low, so I guess we were there with like the super fans. But it seems like everyone there was a super fan. Knew every song. Like people were crying, like tears of joy. Like some drunk woman online for concessions was like, I saw Play Made Out with someone for the first time to Crash in 1998. What a special memory, lady. Sloppily. But yeah, as like a casual fan, it's just like, whoa, like what's going on, right? There's doesn't seem to be many casual fans here. I'm a fan more of going to things, right? I'll go to something. It's fun. Yeah, and then Saturday night we went out to dinner with some friends at like this really creative restaurant that makes like a bunch of small plates. You get to try a bunch of stuff. Just really good. I tried bone marrow for the first time. Delicious. I can see people being like a little hesitant because of how it comes. It comes in like a what seems like a dog bone, and you just like scoop it out onto a cracker and spread it. But it's phenomenal. You know. What else they had? Oh, like little caviar sandwiches, which sounds so weird, but I'm telling you, it's not. I mean, the place was called Chubby Fish in Charleston. I mean, it's hard to get in there because they don't take reservations. You have to sit there and wait online to put your name in. Which is so, yeah, it just takes a minute. And then Sunday played two hockey games. So yeah, just feeling chatted out, right? But it's good. It was a good, nice distraction to be that busy. Just had a lot of stuff going on with wedding planning and just life. So yeah, had a great time. Speaking of great things, I've got a great episode here for you. The episode is on understanding the root cause of anxiety, and I interviewed Sean McNicholas from New Me Therapy, who kind of like takes me on that journey a little bit. Very interesting stuff. Very helpful if you have anxiety, just start thinking about not just treating the symptoms, but also understanding what's causing those symptoms. So before we start talking to Sean and talking about the root cause of anxiety, which is different for every person, I just want to remind you, if you're liking the show, please remember to rate and review it. 5 stars. Way to go, Pat. Glad you went out and talked to people. Leave that review. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Don't forget Pure Spectrum CBD. A lot of products, from bath products to solves to mints with CBD in them, pet products, and also offered the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off. And then if you're liking the show and you want to make a donation or a tip, you can do that through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. So yeah, there you have it. There's the meat and potatoes. Now let's get to the dessert. I don't mean to be referring to Sean as dessert, but the reason we're all here, the interview part, the big show. Okay, I'll stop. Well, as always, thank you for listening and enjoy. Joining me now on the podcast, I have Sean McNicholas, who is a therapist and a mind coach. Sean, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be chatting a little bit about the root causes of anxiety and how you as a therapist help people to identify those causes and begin to create a path forward. But before we jump into that, I wanted to give you a chance to sort of introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sean. I'm a therapist and mindset coach from London. I have online clients from around the world. In terms of my credentials, I am an RTT therapist, a hypnotherapist, CBT practitioner, NLP practitioner, and a clinical trauma professional. My main niche is working with people with high levels of stress, especially those with anxiety. And in terms of anxiety and the disorders themselves, I work in and around the family of anxiety, so phobias, general anxiety disorder, OCD, PTSD, panic attacks and so on. I also work with other clients for other issues associated to that, to do with addictions and weight and anger and so on. I'm also a Samaritan. So in the UK, the Samaritans is a nationwide organisation that our main focus is about working with people who have suicidal thoughts. So it's all about working with people to, as I always say, we take them away from the edge.
Yeah, that's great. Oh man. What made you want to get into this line of work? I'm always curious. Is it, do you experience anxiety, depression, something like that?
I tick all the boxes. So I've had a very
Yeah.
colourful life, shall we say, full of highs and lows. A very dysfunctional childhood. I grew up with my dad passed away when I was 5 years old, and I was raised by a dysfunctional, alcoholic, abusive mother, trying to raise three kids. So she had her own struggles. So through those childhood years, you develop childhood trauma, and then through that you have your own challenges growing up. So what for me,
Mhm.
for example, one of the challenges was ADHD. So I had ADHD without being diagnosed with ADHD because I'm a 70s child. So that meant that you were just an over hyperactive kid who was thrown out of class and just very
Yep.
disruptive. I went
Just
through
limit the sugar and, off you go.
Away you go. So went through depressions, went through anxieties, just tick, tick, tick. My career started off, I was a nursery teacher. So I taught kids at nursery. I was always fascinated working with people and also learning about psychology. That's when I first got into it from studying the modules in to become a nursery teacher. And then I went through different various career paths, including business and technology. But I've always been fascinated by psychology and working with people and how the mind works. So I've continued to read and study. And over those years, I always told myself that I wanted to move into that space at some point to become a therapist. And that's where I am now. I think that with the life experiences that I've had now, it brings me to a much more broadened kind of scope of understanding all different types of people. So I also work with prisoners, for example. So prisoners in particular, men that have been in prison for a very long time for serious crimes, murders and stuff like that. But they connect with me really well because of my age, because of my experience. I'm not saying I've killed anyone, but it's more to do with that I can relate to where they're coming from and they tell me about their childhood traumas and everything like that. So I understand
Mhm.
all aspects of them growing up and why they do the things they do. Because as we all know, the biggest mental health institutions in the world are prison services.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I mean, what a positive spin. I mean, being able to take what your childhood was and use it to help other people. I mean, geez, how many people need that kind of help? So that's so impressive to hear people like you be able to turn it to such a positive. Jumping towards anxiety. So in our pre-conversation before this interview, we were discussing sort of getting at the root cause of anxiety. Can you talk a little bit about like why that's so important?
Yeah, I mean, when people talk about being anxious today, what's actually happening is you're activating an old memory. So if someone feels anxious today about something, and in that moment, sometimes you feel overwhelmed and you don't even know why you feel anxious. And
Mm,
your brain is racing around trying to find out what's going on, why do I feel this way? Your heart's pumping, your breathing gets shallow, sometimes you get hot and clammy and sweaty. You're trying to understand what's just happened for me to stop feeling anxious. Now, what may happen, I'll give you an example. You may be walking down the road or on a path, walking past some shops, looking in some shop windows, and subconsciously someone walks past you with ginger hair, for example. It means
mm,
nothing to you consciously. You just carry on with your day. But something in your mind has triggered something to say, okay, when you were 10 years old, you used to get really bullied by a boy with ginger hair. So ginger people mean that they are a threat. It means that you have to run away, you have to escape. There is something to be worried about. There's something to fear about. And what happens is your body responds in a way as if you're going back to being that 10-year-old boy being bullied by that ginger kid.
mm.
So a lot of time it's subconscious. So it's the meaning that your experience has just happened takes you back to your previous experience.
Oh man, it's so fascinating. I mean, I just had an example of this come up over this weekend. My fiance and I have started to plan our wedding, and we were just getting started and trying to make some decisions. And like, I just felt like I couldn't breathe and I needed to like take the dog and go for a walk. I still could not tell you why that happened. But I was just like so overwhelmed, almost
You're,
panic attack level.
because in that moment there was something going on inside you that made you feel like there was too much going on. So anxiety is brought on by stress, and stress comes from four main reasons: lack of information, loss of control, uncertainty, or any type of conflict. So if you're experiencing that in the moment, it will set your anxiety off. So it will take you back to a time and a place where you may feel powerless, you may feel scared, you may feel alone, upset. It could be any of those feelings, but it takes you right back to feeling that response from years before. So that's why all of a sudden the nervous system starts activating. So you got fight or flight. So all of a sudden you feel like you're under pressure. You start
Hmm.
responding in a way where you want to fight, you want to flee, or you freeze, or sometimes fold, is just like just shut down. So, and that's what's happening. That's what the experience is all about. But you don't know that.
Yeah.
This is just a response that it's an unconscious response that you're unaware of, but that's what's going on. And that's why it's so important to go back to the root cause to understand when was the first time you felt powerless, helpless, scared, upset, alone, whatever the symptoms were, the feelings were. We need to go back to a time and a place where that first started, because no one is born with anxiety. Anxiety
Hmm.
comes into your life at some stage when you are unable to cope through no fault of your own normally. And what happens is your stress levels start peaking higher and higher. All of a sudden, this radar is scanning for problems. Your amygdala, which is like the fear center, all of a sudden makes you feel fearful all the time because something's happened in your life where your view of the world changes. The world's a dangerous place. Ginger people are unsafe. It could be yellow. It could be yellow cars. I mean, you could have been in a car accident 20 years ago with a yellow car. So every time you see a yellow car now, subconsciously in your peripheral view, all of a sudden it sets you off thinking, "Oh my God, it's like PTSD going back into that car crash experience."
Yeah, wow. I have so many questions, so I'm going to try to keep track of everything here. The first thing is just that it's very, I'll use the word odd to think that, like, I'm seeing you through the Zoom. I'm perceiving the world. I'm feeling the temperature of the room. But then there's this other, like, sub-perceptual part of our brain that obviously isn't turning off. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't even know what the question is to formulate there. It's just like, how is that?
I know,
Like,
I
what
know
is
the
going
answer.
on? Yeah. Okay.
I know the question to the. I know the answer to the question that you can't ask me. So
Yes.
what's happened is, and you use the word correctly there, it's perception, it's perceived. So
Hmm.
what happens in that moment? Your mind is overwhelmed by a perceived threat. The threat is not real, but you feel like you've been taken back to a time and a place. This is about activating that old memory. This is where PTSD comes from, and this tells you that you're living in the past. This tells you that you're living in survival mode. This tells you that you're living on high alert, making you hyper vigilant. So you're walking around thinking that something bad is terribly going to happen in any second now. You don't know
Hmm.
where, why, how, but in your mind, that's how you feel, and you can't do nothing to set it to reset it without specific types of therapy. So I always, when I say so give me an example of something that happened that made you feel like that recently.
I mean, the wedding example
Okay,
is a
so
good one. Yeah.
so with that wedding example, if you just take yourself back to that moment, and I always say to clients, without using the word could, tell me how you may be in danger or you may be unsafe.
I was completely safe. I was in my pajamas. We had a
Mm,
charcuterie board set up. I had some white wine. Like, it's just, as like, the temperature was nice in the room. Like,
yeah,
I was not in danger at
I
all.
know. But your thinking process is, oh, this could happen. This could happen. What if this happens? So
Hmm.
when I ask that question, so say for example, someone's walking down the street, they got fear of people, and they say they feel unsafe in that moment. I say, okay, when you're walking down the street and there's people walking past you, giving you enough space, tell me how you could be in danger or feel unsafe. And they think about it and think, okay, well, he could bump into me. He could have a gun. This car could crash into me. I said, okay, we have to remove the coulds. When you remove the coulds of what the possibilities could be, then you
Hmm.
reset your senses to trust your senses by saying, right now I can see that there's no one in front of me. Right now I can hear that there's no threats coming in and around me. No one can touch me. No one's touching me. So in that moment, you're resetting your senses. You're bringing yourself back to the present. And this is what
Hmm.
people need to do. Even that exercise itself, it allows you some space and time. to think more calmly, to give yourself some space and time to think about, if I can just put myself in the present moment, right now in this second, I am absolutely safe. And the more
Yeah.
you use that exercise, the more you are, it's called ERP, exposure response prevention. And what you're doing is you're exposing yourself time and time again to the same experience. But every time your tolerance levels are going lower and lower, your stress levels are becoming lower and lower, because what you're doing is you're reminding yourself time and time again, I am safe. I am
Mm,
secure. My mind is telling me there's something wrong with this moment, but maybe walking down this pavement 15 years ago, something bad happened. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every time now. And that's what the fear
right.
center is doing for you.
Yeah. Well, going through that example of walking down the block that you were just sharing, it put me back in like, all right, what was I actually afraid of in that moment? It's like, was I going to let somebody down with the wedding? Are we going to overextend ourselves financially? Are we going to be just stressed and not be able to enjoy the next couple of months as we move towards the wedding, right? Because,
Mm.
we're still working full time and all that. And so that just like it builds up and builds up and builds up, and then just the top blows off.
So lack of information and uncertainty.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it tells me that sometime in your past, there was scenarios that you had uncertainty in your life, and that caused high levels of stress and anxiety.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just not being in control. Yeah, I've lost jobs before,
Yeah,
and I've been a freelancer before, and
yeah,
when you're looking for jobs, right, you're just
yeah.
sitting in that constant uncertainty. Yeah, that's stressful.
Okay.
Um,
And that's the feeling you're feeling when you're planning your wedding,
yeah, it is.
because all those memories and emotions are flushing over. It's reminding you,
Hmm.
saying, Pat, remember this emotion, remember it's happening again, you know,
Right.
and that's what's happening.
Yeah. Can we talk? I know you've got a lot on your plate. You've got work, you've got friends, you've got family, pets, you've got the people that you make small talk with at the coffee shop or gym. You've got that bird that you see when you wake up every morning outside your window that you've projected things onto. Look at that bird. Doesn't even love its family, it's always by itself. You do that. Everyone does that. Point is, you've got a lot on your plate. Well, that's why there's Instacart, to take a little bit off your plate. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and things that you need from the grocery store, all online, all while you're looking at that bird, wondering why it hasn't called its mom. And they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do the shopping for you. And they can deliver it in as fast as an hour. And you can sign up by clicking the link in the description, wherever you're listening or watching. And that's a great way of supporting the show. So it's a great way of supporting this show. It's a great way to make your life a little bit easier, because we all know that you have so much going on, like wondering whether that bird judges you back. Well, I'm curious. So, we, how often do people know, or you're trying to walk somebody back to like a root cause or a time that they were anxious? Does
Yeah.
everybody, is everybody more or less able to pick up on something that's causing that anxiety, or is it, are some people might need more help like digging through the memories, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I could ask you, what's the earliest memory of you telling me not being in control? And you may be able to recall something when you were 6 years old, but the core belief may be before that. It's only when you go into the subconscious, because you and I are having a conscious conversation, but the subconscious is 97% of the mind. That's where your memories are. That's where your core
Oh
beliefs are.
wow.
So it's always going deeper and deeper. And that's when you use work, like as part of the modules I use like hypnotherapy. So that switches off the conscious mind. So we remove the analytical thinking and we dive deeply into where the truth is. And this is when you dive into the truth. I'm taking you back to a time and a place where you're not this 40-year-old man looking back at the child now. You're now going back as the child and living in that experience again. So you're in that living room and you can hear mum and dad arguing, and all of a sudden you can't do nothing about it because you're too small to run away. You're too small to argue with your parents because you may get a slap or something worse could happen to you. So you condition yourself to be quiet. You condition yourself
Mm,
to just freeze. And in that moment, you feel powerless and helpless. And that's when your mindset and your conditioning and your brain adaptations start to change.
Oh wow. You're
But
just
those
like,
memories, but their memories are very, very significant in your life.
hmm. Yeah, it's just like your brain is like, all right, we didn't die because we did this, right? And then it's
Yeah.
like that's how I'm gonna react all the time.
But by doing that, you move away from your authenticity. You move away from who you are because as a 40-year-old man, and you see your parents arguing, you would say something to them. You'd leave the room. You would do something. As a young child, you feel powerless. You feel helpless, and you feel like if my parents are arguing like this, it tells me they don't love me. They don't care about me. I'm not good enough.
Mm,
And all of a sudden, these core beliefs are being formed from a young child. So they feel like they're not good enough. They feel like no one cares about them. They're unlovable. I feel different. I can't achieve the things because I don't believe in myself. And those core beliefs carry on for decades and decades.
wow,
And when I say about core beliefs, it's like, when you were a child, you believed in Santa Claus.
of course.
And you believed in Santa Claus because your mum and dad told you.
Hmm.
And because they told you, you believed it to be true.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when you're younger, you have these beliefs. The conscious mind hasn't even started to develop till you're 7 years old. So anything that you believe before that is the truth until you question it, until you challenge it, until you change it. So it's only when you become, I don't know, for you, what, 21 years old when you started to realize Santa wasn't real?
Probably 35. Yeah.
35, yeah. But once you realized, you felt quite foolish, right?
Yes, yes.
And it's all about once you realize the truth, once you question the truth, once you question the belief can no longer be true. And that's with
Hmm.
so many things because we've gone up as even for myself with my own healing. I've realized that there's so many beliefs that I had through my year, which I now know are not true because I've always believed it as I'm still stuck as being that young child rather than the
Mm.
adult that I am now.
Oh man, also so interesting. So I have a memory from when I was a little kid where like I couldn't even tell you, but based on where the memory is from, I was younger than 5. So I remember I'm at a public pool, I'm going into the public restroom, and I'm just like slapping the stall doors open,
Mm.
and there was a guy in there that like took offense to like this little kid smacking the doors open, and I remember him getting in my face and screaming at me, and just me just like having a meltdown being like, what is this, like to the
Yeah.
point that I went back even told my mom there at the pool, and like there was this like search for this man who screams at children, and so it's just like that caused anxiety too because it was like, oh man, look at this, like we're making a federal case here, but it was traumatizing.
It would be. I mean, you're talking about if we look at if you're in the woods and there's a big
Mm-hmm.
screaming, growling grizzly bear coming towards you, you're going to run away, right?
Yep.
But if you're in a room with a big screaming grizzly bear, you can't fight the bear, you can't run away, you're stuck,
Mm-hmm.
and you fall down, you fall, you cower down, but you feel powerless, you can't do nothing about it. You ask yourself as a child, you're very egocentric. What's wrong with me? Why is he behaving like this? Even though I'm banging all the lockers and I'm really irritating lots of people, children are egocentric. You're having loads of fun. You're not aware of the impact you're having on other people. That
Mm-hmm.
guy could be having a really bad day. You could be banging those lockers right by his head. So his stress levels could be really high, and he could just snap at you like without even thinking about it. So, but in that moment, the child is very egocentric, and you blame yourself. What's wrong with me? The world is dangerous. Do not trust men. Do not go into lockers by yourself.
Mm.
Anything can happen. And let's say, for example, that guy had ginger hair, and every time you see ginger haired guys now, this is how it works. Pat.
Yeah, wow. Oh man. I'm curious how hypnotherapy comes into all this. Is that like a way you work with everybody, or is it certain cases speak more towards hypnotherapy?
Yeah, I mean, I offer different types of packages. I can see clients on an hourly basis every week, or I offer deep and more powerful sessions, which include more psychotherapeutic modalities, including hypnotherapy. And the reason being is that we can spend the next hour having talking therapy. And with talking therapy, I can say, Pat, tell me why you're anxious. And you'll tell me from a conscious level. Now,
Hmm.
some people have got some deep rooted causes that they do not know why. They can't recall the memory, but it is in there. The subconscious knows, but you just can't access it. Now, what I say is that when you've got really deep, excruciating toothache and it's really painful, you don't want to go to visit the dentist every week to sit on a chair and talk about the pain. You want that dentist to find that pain, remove it, and transform your life forever. And
Right.
that's why a lot of people, when I offer, I can see you every week, but it's like what I think is really unfair to clients is that we can get to the 45th minute and we touch on a really painful, traumatic event for you, and all of a sudden I'll say, okay, time's up. Keep
Mm.
hold of that trauma for a week, and we'll talk about it next week. So for me, I rather offer this package where I literally stay with you from the beginning to the end. And the end always ends up in the beautiful journey, looking at your beautiful future. It's all about making you more carefree and stress-free. We remove the anxiety from your life because we understand where it comes from and we realize that you no longer need it. So I use other techniques to let that go. We reset your senses back from 10 to 0, and you're a much more freer, lighter person afterwards. So
Wow.
with
Who
the
doesn't want
hypnotherapy,
that?
sorry,
I said, who doesn't
exactly.
want that? Yeah. Does that sound
Yeah.
appealing? Yeah.
So with the hypnotherapy, you use that technique to go into the subconscious because I need to get you into a really deep, calm, and relaxed state. So we switch off the conscious mind. So when we dive in, and it's really interesting because the moment you go into hypnosis and I ask the question, I click my fingers, your subconscious will tell me the answer straight away, whether you're 35, 25, or 5 years old. It just comes up. That memory is right there. It's so vivid. You're in
Oh
the
my
room, you know, the
gosh.
color of the wallpaper, you can smell your mum's cooking. It's amazing.
Wow. That's like what's that movie? It's like Inception, but with like a memory, right? It's just, oh man,
Yeah,
that's
but that's the
remarkable.
point. Is what is you can't change the event. You can change the meaning of the event and what it meant to you. Because, for
Mm.
example, your view of the world with that guy screaming at you in that locker room is that men are dangerous, men are unsafe. But now you realise he was just reacting to an irritating child banging on the lockers. You know, so
Hmm.
now you realise you're an adult now. Your karma will come back to you, Pat. You know, you're gonna have like kid clashing cymbals or
Yeah.
something near you.
Of
But
course.
I have other ways that we can. There's a kind of demo that I do where we can explain how we can get to a root cause just by having a conversation without doing a really deep work. Are you
Hmm.
up for that?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Okay. So give me an example recently of something that's upset you. Oh, pen and paper for this. Something that's upset you recently. Could be anything. Doesn't have
Uh
to be anything too dramatic.
does does it so it could be just like a traffic jam or something like that?
Yeah,
Or
anything.
okay, yeah, we can go with a traffic jam. That was the first thought that popped into my mind.
Okay. So tell me what happened.
Trying to get some errands done and trying to pack in my day as much as possible. I try to get as much done every single day to because I think more is going to come up tomorrow. So I have to get this done so I don't have a lot. I can make room for the new things that are going to come on my plate the next day. And I remember just being frustrated that I only had like a small window to get things done. And I was trying to like race against the clock to get back for like a work meeting. And there
Hmm.
was a traffic jam. I think there was some road construction going on
Okay.
that delayed.
So you were stuck in traffic. You're in a rush.
Hmm.
How did that make you feel?
Powerless, annoyed, frustrated. Yeah, those are probably the big ones.
Frustrated is angry.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell me, what was it in particular that you felt so annoyed and angry and powerless about with the traffic?
That I had to be somewhere other than where I was, right? That I wanted to be back home. I forget what else I had to do that day, but
Yeah. You're
I
telling me what happened. But what did it mean to you? What was it that made you feel so angry and annoyed?
that I thought that my to-do list was going to pile up more. I mean, that does that describe the feeling more? Just like that, how can this be? This is ridiculous. Is that more in
What,
line
what
with
was
what
the
you're asking?
what was the mean? So I'm trying to get to the meaning of it. So you felt powerless and angry in that moment. Did you
Yeah.
feel like you weren't in control?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you feel the fact that there was traffic, that no one cares about you for you to get to your destination? What was it you were feeling that made you so angry and annoyed?
Yeah. I can't believe that this is happening in the moment. I don't think it's like nobody cares about me. It's just sort of like, damn, this is my luck, right? Because I know people don't care about me, right? Like, not in like a sad sense, just like we're all humans, we're all buzzing around doing our stuff, right? Like I'm just another ant on the anthill kind of thing, and I'm
Yeah,
okay
but
with
that's
that.
interesting because you're making the assumption that no one cares about anyone.
Yeah.
But the way you say it, it's so general. It's like it's just normal, and it isn't normal.
Hmm. I guess not. That's true. I guess there's plenty of people, right? There are firefighters and police officers and doctors who care very deeply
Yeah.
about people. Yeah.
So when you're not in control, you feel powerless.
Yes.
Okay. Is this the first time you felt powerless and not in control, or does it go way back?
I feel this very often. So the traffic jam is just one example, but I would say I feel that way multiple times a week for one reason or the other.
Yeah. But how far back does it go? When the first memory of you feeling powerless and someone doesn't care about you?
I can remember feeling powerless, like not wanting to go certain places as a kid, right? Not
Or
being in
feeling like
control
someone
of your
does,
schedule.
or feeling like someone doesn't care about you.
Yeah, maybe teachers, me feeling like teachers didn't have my best interests or they didn't understand or mistook things, or I felt like they didn't care about like this actual me, the student, just like that I was a number for them. It
Yeah.
was a job kind of thing.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it feels makes you sad because it's like, this, you expect these people to look after you, and it makes you feel like the world, like if there's not that level of care, it's like, what are we all doing, right, to kind of blow it all up. Yeah, it kind of like changes a worldview in my mind.
Yeah. And just going back to the traffic jam, there are a number of possibilities why there was a traffic jam, and many reasons. Let's list the reason why there was a traffic jam. Some ideas, some reasons. There's a car crash. There
Mm-hmm.
was a bus stop. What other reasons could there be that there was a traffic jam? They had
uh
nothing to do with the other commuters that don't care about you.
the road maintenance, or sometimes here in South Carolina there's animals crossing that people will stop for, like geese or deer or something. There could be a stalled out car, or
Yeah. So
there's
we've got
also
some
sometimes.
examples.
Oh yeah, there you go. I could list a million more.
Yeah.
It's probably
So
not as.
so there could be a number of reasons that there's a traffic jam that's got
Mhm,
nothing to do with these people don't care about you because you're
mhm,
taking it personal.
mhm,
Okay. So what's interesting is that when this traffic jam appears and you're stuck in traffic and you're feeling powerless and angry and annoyed, your go-to response is they don't care about you. When there's a number of reasons, there's other options that you could have chose. And the point
mhm,
is, you never chose any of those options. You didn't go through all the options as to why there's a traffic jam. Could the geese be crossing the road? Could there be an accident? Your go-to response is, people don't care about me. I'm running late. I'm angry. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. So the
mhm.
question is why?
That's a great question. I don't. I don't have an answer on the top of my mind. I think it just goes back to like the root of me just always feeling like I have to do 1,000 things a day. I just feel that drive,
Yeah.
or I feel like I have to do that.
And what happens if you don't?
Then it can build up, and I'll know I'll feel stressed.
What would it mean to you if you don't fulfill that role, that obligation?
I feel like I'd be letting like Jamie down, my fiance, letting her down, letting my family down.
Yeah.
Um, just trying to make our lives as nice and easy and smooth and happy.
Yeah. Because the point is this, it's not what happens, it's the meaning you attach to it. So when that traffic jam arises, it's not about the traffic jam and you being annoyed or frustrated. Your belief is, for this to happen, no one cares about me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important for you to do everything for everyone else. You're trying to please everyone else, right?
Mm.
Because if you can make people happy and you make people feel loved, you'll get that love back.
Damn. No one's ever put it to me like that. But yes, I definitely am a people pleaser, and I worry a lot about making people happy because I've been very unhappy at times in my life, and I know what it feels like. And so I try to help people not feel that way.
Yeah, because you care.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't been cared for before in the past and you know how it feels
Mm-hmm.
and it hurts you. And that's why you
Yeah.
still have that go-to response. And that's why it's so important for you to bust your ass every day to do everything you can to please everyone, to make them happy. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
make them happy, then you feel happy within yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get your love from.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So imagine you're the most lovable person, everyone cares about you, and there is no pressure for you to do anything because they love you just the way you are. You're significant, you're important, you're confident, you're motivated, and you really, really matter. Now imagine you having that mindset. You believe everything that you are good enough. Now
Hmm.
imagine when you get to a traffic jam now, how would you feel about that moment?
Oh, this is more time for the podcast I'm listening to, right? It just,
So you can see, right? This is all about
yeah,
the mindset.
it is. Absolutely. Man, you just read me like a book in 30 seconds or 10 minutes or whatever that was. Yeah.
And that's without hypnosis. So that
Yeah.
just gives you a snapshot. The subconscious work is much deeper than that. But just by asking those deeper and deeper questions, we can really get to the root cause of where these beliefs are coming from.
Yeah, man. And as we were getting deeper there, I started feeling like emotions rising
I know,
within me.
I know, because they're being
I could feel like
surfaced.
sadness.
You're releasing it for the first time. A lot of stuff is trapped and locked inside.
Oh man. I mean, that sounds like another way to get a heart attack, I guess. Just stuffing that down.
But
Yeah. Well, I didn't
it's very
take like
it's
oh,
very
I'm sorry.
liberating. It's very enlightening and very revealing for you because you start to make the connections yourself,
Mm,
and that's what's really powerful for you. You start again. I've never realized this had to do with that,
hmm.
and once you do, you start connecting the dots more frequently.
Makes you feel a little foolish too at times that it's like it's just that plain to see that I'm trying to hurry because I want love. Please love me.
Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight.
Yeah,
We don't know
absolutely.
what we don't know why we do these things we do,
Hmm.
but I always say you don't know what you don't know. No,
Hmm.
sometimes you've got to get professional advice. This is why people come to me to just unpick those knots to understand more what's going on inside. Because everyone's in such a rush all the time. We live in this fast world. If we keep moving forward, there's a saying: "There's nothing worse than a busy fool." Keep
Hmm.
yourself busy, but what are you moving away from? I'm always curious about people that are busy because you're trying to move away from what's going on inside.
Yep.
How much time do you give yourself? How much time do you reflect? How much time do you just take a walk in the woods and just take a moment by yourself just to listen to the leaves? It sounds a bit woo-woo, but this is the only time when you're present because there's so much noise around you. There's devices and screens everywhere. There's so
Hmm.
much distraction. We just don't take time to be present.
I know that's something really been trying to be better at. I constantly evaluate my to-do list, right? And try to like remove things because it's like, all right, what am I gaining by doing this, right? But I always feel like I'm shortchanging myself. So yeah, ongoing battle that I'm trying to get better at. I've started playing with the dog at least like 15, 20 minutes during the day, right? We play all night, but during the day, just to like sit there and just play fetch with him in the backyard.
Mm.
And nice to have that
But
time.
everything we do has a positive intention. Whether people see it as right or wrong, there's a positive intention behind it. So when I have clients that come to me with issues around eating, comfort eating. Got people with issues around addiction, so smoking and drinking and so on. And people think it's really bad for you. But when I speak to that client and say people think it's bad, I want you to tell me something that's good about it because in that moment there is a positive intention. And they will
Mm-hmm.
tell you, for example, if they're eating, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel, it kind of gives them some comfort. It gives them they feel some lost connection. And when you do the work, you find out that it doesn't make logical sense for a 40-year-old to have a packet of cookies at 10 o'clock at night. Doesn't make sense. But when you
Mm-hmm.
find out that when they're really upset and emotional, their mum used to give them a biscuit after school to cheer them up. So that connection was always love, connection, bonded. With drinking's about soothing and giving relief. Sometimes it's about just moving away from that pain. So it's about
Mm-hmm.
understanding what's going on inside. And then with drugs, it's about stimulants, it's about feeling alive, it's about escapism, all that kind of stuff. So the question is, what are you trying to get away from? When did you stop living? Because the addiction is not the problem. The addiction is trying to solve the problem going on inside. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
coping mechanism. So we just really need to pay attention to why we do the things we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious about hypnosis. Obviously, we're not gonna do it right now, but hypnosis is on like the Twilight Zone or like old movies, right? There's like the watch going back and forth. Is it more breathing exercises that help people? Like, how do you sort of get into that hypnosis state?
Yeah, I mean, what you see on TV is normally called stage hypnosis, which you see different types of techniques, but they make people flop on a chair and start running around like a dog or clucking
Yeah.
around like a chicken. Yeah, that's stage hypnosis. That's not what we do. This is why we call it hypnotherapy. We get them into a much more deep and calm and relaxed state where we slowly go through an induction to get them into a state where we're now deep into the subconscious. It's the main important thing is really that we switch off the conscious mind. We stop
Mhm.
this part of thinking because that's where all the noise is. Especially people with anxiety. It's really interesting that when I have clients with anxiety, the sessions, the deep session lasts between 2 and 3 hours. For them, it lasts 15 to 20 minutes. For them, they're having a
Oh,
power nap.
wow.
And what's really interesting is that when we switch off the conscious mind, because for many people with anxiety, they have these voices in their heads, their mind's racing. I switch this off. This goes to sleep. And that's what's so beautiful about it. Because when I say to the client at the end of this powerful session, come back to full awareness, their eyes are still closed and they say, you know what? I love this peace and quiet. I just want to stay here. And they rest there for like 20 minutes. And even with the work I do afterwards, I provide them with a 20-minute recording to take home and listen to every day. And they use that to find that calmness, that peace and tranquility that's missing in their lives.
Oh, wow.
And slowly they get used to it. They get used to kind of doing their own self hypnosis, their own meditations, their own relaxation techniques. This is the kind of methods that are used for people with anxiety, stress, and so on to help them be much more calmer, more stress free. And this works for people in high level business jobs. This is for stressful mums at home. These are for all different types of jobs and roles and personalities because everyone comes with their own presenting issues. But there'll
Mhm.
always be underlying core issues to do with the core beliefs and so on.
Right. Man, one of life's mysteries is that birthdays always find me unprepared, catch me unprepared. I don't go on Facebook as much, so I don't notice them as much. But I want to express my love and appreciation for friends and family. That wasn't part of the copy. I'm just saying it. Year after year, month after month. Even when I see it coming, I'm not ready. Am I a jerk? Yes and no. Why do things have to be so black and white for you? But I've got great news, friends. Introducing monthly card subscriptions from the Cardist Studio. Join the service that delivers the card and the stamp that you'll need to your door. No more errands. Who wants more errands? I don't know why, but I'm starting to think of errands as a kid's name. Errands, go back to bed. Okay, but here's how it works. You choose your categories, from birthdays and celebrations to love and encouragement, or select their full collections and have those thank you notes and just because cards at the ready. Those ones are always so nice. Like when you get a card for doing something and it's just like a small little heads up or token of appreciation, it genuinely makes you feel really good. And best of all, you would never get caught cardless again. Let me repeat. You'll never get caught cardless again. Try to say that a bunch of times in a row. You'll never get caught cardless again. Monthly card subscriptions from as little as $8 per month for the card and the stamp. Delivered to you. TheCardistStudio.com shop subscriptions. And you can use the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your originating order. You kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but I'm curious about so we've got the root cause of the patient's or person's anxiety. What do you then do like in the go forth moment, right? They've had this hypnotherapy session or working with you weekly. Yeah, what's the homework and what's the go forth and prosper kind of
Yeah.
advice?
So, like I said, this is a kind of journey we're going together. So, first of all, we get to understand we get to understand first of all why they have this fear. So, for example, I had a client this morning who's got fear of flying. Now, I already know the fear of flying's got nothing to do with airplanes. The fear of flying's got everything to do with not being in control.
Right.
So as far as they're concerned, they are trapped in this metallic tube. They can't see the windscreen. They don't know who's flying. They don't know where they are in terms of altitude or location. There might be a screen with a map saying we're somewhere over some country, but it means nothing to them because in that moment they are activating an old memory of being powerless, feeling helpless, and not in control. And in that moment, that's when the breathing starts. That's when the panic attack starts as well for some people because they can't escape. And then you find out, for example, I've had a client recently, similar issue, and it was all to do when she was like 6 or 7 years old. She was playing around with her dad in the living room, and they were doing wrestling, and he was on top of her, and she kept saying, let me out," and he was on top of her, just playing around with her. But in that moment, she panicked. She had a panic attack. She felt trapped and powerless, and this fear of flying took us back to that scene.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's got nothing to do with airplanes whatsoever. So now what we're doing is that we're reviewing this scene now as the adult she is now. So say she's 45 years old. She's now looking back and understanding her dad was only messing about. Her dad
Hmm.
didn't want to make her feel trapped or powerless. His intention was just to have fun. He just didn't listen to her crying so much. And so we get to reframe it and look at it from a different perspective. But sometimes when you look back at these old scenes, the clients start to laugh, saying, I can't fly because of this. I can't believe, I
Hmm.
had another guy. He had an issue with performance, and it was to do with a school disco when he was 11 years old because his girlfriend kissed another guy at the disco. And
Oh, wow.
there's always these, but he was laughing so much even in the session, let alone afterwards. And he said that stupid 11-year-old girl has caused so many problems in my life because they haven't changed. They haven't changed their belief or their view of the world. So we look at the reframe, and then we use other techniques like NLP to let that part go. So we do parts therapy, and the reason why we do that is we get the client to look inside, and you always feel where that anxiety is first of all. Some people feel it in the head, some people feel it around the heart, some people feel it around the stomach. So we get to really identify and locate it, really sense how it feels, and then we do some techniques to release it from your body. And
Mm.
it sounds really surreal about it, but it really works because they've just let that go because they realize they don't need it in their life no more. Yes, it served them a purpose for a little while because they felt like the anxiety made them feel safe and secure because they told themselves, whenever you feel powerless or not in control, you need to escape because there could be danger, just
Right.
based on that story or that belief that created from years before. And then we work on the final part is a 20-minute recording, which is called the transformation. So we talk about your life now. We talk about how you're feeling now, what it is that you want in your future. So we look at your friends, your family, your career, the home you want to live in a year's time, everything that you want to see and have a compelling future because it's all about moving towards something
Mm.
because the purpose has got to be greater than the problem itself. So we need to have a reason why you wake up every morning and do the things you do because you're moving away from the life that you had. It's very liberating. But once you go through that, feelings and sensations that go through that person's body, they 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 visualize it as if they're in that moment right now. They visualize living in this dream home on the lake, taking the kids on these wonderful trips in Bali along the beach, and they really feel it. It really feels emotional to them. And that sensation stays with them. I use some other anchoring techniques with the NLP, but the recording then beds it in again. So you listen to that recording every day for 28
Mm.
days. And it really gives them that feeling and sensation and that confidence and motivation to learn to do it by themselves.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing, man. I gotta go see a hypnotherapist. This has to happen. I mean, why wouldn't you want to try it, right? It seems
Do you
so
know what?
transformative.
Do you know what, Pat? It's every time I do a podcast afterwards, the podcast said to me, "Okay, I need to book you up." But this is more than just hypnotherapy. This is my point because hypnotherapy is about if they want you to stop smoking, they get you into trance, and then they talk about right, you don't smoke no more, and you're moving through your life as a non-smoker. The work I do is a lot more deeper than just hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy
Hmm.
is just to get you into that subconscious state, and then I do a lot more cognitive thinking. Really,
Right.
just get to understand where those roots of those core issues are, and rip those roots out so you no longer have them anymore.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Sean, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm wondering if there's anything you think that I'm missing here that you think is important to mention, and then if you want to mention any social media or your website, wherever people can find you.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's anyone that I work with or know that has anxiety. It's all about finding relaxation methods to get you into a much more calm and relaxed state, because this is about anxiety is all about activating the nervous system. So we need to find ways to calm it down, to reset it. So this is all about walking with nature. Sleep is so important. Some sleep rituals are really important. Think about how you sleep, the quality of your sleep. Think about meditation, things like yoga, anything to do with calmness and breathing. Music is really calming as well. When you calm the nervous system down, you deactivate all those kind of thoughts and feelings. I would go back to using the could method. Whenever you feel overwhelmed and you feel like there's something going on, but you can't identify and your mind's racing, just take some breaths and just pause and say, without using the word could, tell me how I may be in danger or feel unsafe. And just by going through that process, it takes 2 minutes. But by going through that process, even by doing it, you start to reset yourself to start living in the present. You're looking around, you're touching, you're tasting, you're sensing, and you feel safe. That's the most important thing about just resetting yourself, because when you're going through that anxious stage, you're activating an old memory. You're being teleported back to the past of something that happened. Sometimes you don't even know why. But
Yeah.
that's the power of the work I do. In terms of my socials, you'll find me on New Me Therapy, or the website newmetherapy.com. I love sharing some testimonials, some posts. I do some short videos about just getting your mind to think about some scenarios and some nice metaphors. But reach out to me and ask me some questions. I'm happy to respond.
Love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Pat.
When Sean started talking to me about, the traffic jam part, it's like, it was crazy how much like emotion was coming up. Watching the video back, I feel like you can't really tell. I was trying, I guess I wasn't really trying to suppress it, but I wasn't like outwardly expressing it, just like wasn't letting it all come through. But yeah, I was just feeling emotion, which is interesting. It leads right to that point that he was making, that there's a lot of like energy and emotion stuck within our bodies. I gotta get that out. I can't be hiding in there. Just keep stuffing it down with Klondike bars. Well, thank you so much to Sean McNicholas. Definitely check him out. I'm going to include some links in the description so you can get a hold of him. Before I get to the weird thing causing me anxiety this week, just want to remind you of the Buy Me a Coffee link. It's a way to make a donation or a tip to the show. That's in the description, along with the Pure Spectrum CBD with the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off. If you want to sign up for home delivery for groceries, you can do that with Instacart. The link is in the description. And guess what? The link is in the description for the Cardist Studio, who also offer the promo code AnxietyPod for 15% off your initial order. So yeah, supporting them helps support this show and keeps this show rolling. 80 episodes strong. Okay, weird thing causing me anxiety this week. There's just so many social things going on. I was like, oh, am I going to run out of charm? Which is, what a sentence to say. But, I'm using charm as a word of like being able to like listen and, to stories and like be conversational and not just like a blank slate, just sitting there with my mouth agape. A weird thing to be anxious when I've been like, been so busy, I haven't been able to like hang out with people, and it was nice to be able to do it, but also funny that I got anxious about, I'm out of practice. Maybe I've become an unlikable gargoyle. Well, that and the anxiety of driving a new car and worried about putting it in parking garages and because you got to learn the parameters of a new vehicle. But that doesn't feel like a weird thing causing anxiety. That's just that's a very relatable issue. Yeah. Look how relatable I am. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.